Welcome to another episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. My name's Mischa. I'm your host. Today, I'm thrilled to share a conversation that truly opened up new perspectives on the rapidly evolving world of artificial intelligence. I had the honor of sitting down with Rob May, a distinguished entrepreneur at the forefront of AI marketing. Rob's journey from his early days in engineering to becoming a central figure in AI-driven solutions is not just inspiring, but packed with insights that could shape how we think about AI in our daily lives. So let's dive into this enriching discussion where we unravel the mysteries and potentials of AI with an expert who's living it every day. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, indeed. As I was digging around and looking at your history and trying to drum up some questions for you on the show, I started seeing that you were on podcast interviews, back in 2017 and perhaps even before then. I know you've had, what was your email?
I write the Investing in AI newsletter now, but before that, I wrote for 6 years. I wrote for the Inside. I wrote Inside AI. I wrote the weekend commentary for the Inside.com group.
Yeah. And so you've been talking about AI for a while, right?
Yeah.
And that just struck me. So it really, really struck me, especially when I saw 2017, you're talking in depth about AI, right? And I think the bulk of us humans were not even really aware of AI until, OpenAI and Chat GPT, right? For anybody who's aware of that tool. Um, does that make sense? I don't know if there's a
Yeah. Well,
question in there, but I'm just
I'll tell
like,
you how I'll tell you how I got into it. It was very random. So I went to the University of Kentucky, and I was there for undergrad and grad school from '94 through 2000. And they had so it was Web 1.0. So the tech was everything, right? And they had a dual degree program where you could get an undergraduate degree in engineering and an MBA at the same time. And I didn't put much thought into it. I said, they had this research, they had this pamphlet, and it said, people with an MBA make 15% more. And I thought, well, I'd like to make 15% more than whatever my salary is going to be down the road. So I'll do it. So what it allowed us to do was to take graduate level business courses intermixed with our engineering courses, undergrad, which is really cool. And so I had to take this graduate level business course on technology that was super boring because I was a deep tech person. And the professor says, I want you to find a topic, any tech topic to give a presentation on for the year. So I'm flipping through the whole course book and I'm like, boring, boring, boring. And I get to the very end and it's like the future of IT. And it covered like virtual reality and AI. And I was like, well, artificial intelligence sounds interesting. So this is like 1998. I started reading up on it and I got interested in it. So when I graduated, I moved to Florida. I worked in the defense and space industry, and I started a master's degree in computer science focused on AI. I got about halfway through, and I was like, it was all symbolic logic processing in Lisp, which for those of you that aren't technical, that is not how we do any of it today. And so I dropped out, and I was like, this is useless. I'll never use this. But I followed along at what was happening in AI. And so when I sold my first company in December of 2014, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? I looked at 4 areas. I looked at corporate messaging because Slack was big. I looked at IoT, I looked at blockchain, and I looked at AI. And IoT, I was just like, everything's going to be connected to the internet. Great. I don't know what to do with that. Blockchain, I have to admit, like I read the early Bitcoin paper and the side chains paper and some of that stuff. And I was like, I don't get it. I don't know what you need this for. So then I tried to build a corporate messaging tool. It didn't work out very well. And so while I was doing that, I was still doing a bunch of AI research. And Google had come out with a paper the year before on word vectors, which was a big breakthrough in natural language processing. And I just started thinking like, this is where it's going next. Like language is the next thing. And so I decided to make the next phase of my career, starting in 2015, AI focused. So I started to, I took some of the money I'd made and did a bunch of angel investments. I was part of a venture fund for a while. And then I built my first company was really successful. My second company was an AI company, but was a little too before its time, technically wise. But Yeah, that's how I got into it. And people told me I was crazy. Like the number of people that were sort of like, hey, you can't, you won't make money on this. There've been all these AI winters. Don't waste your time. But it felt like it was different this time, and it was.
So, quick question, word vectoring, and you threw that out there like we should all know what word vectoring is, but that's kind of like saying what word vectoring.
So it's a way of teaching machines. It's a way of putting language into a mathematical model so that machines can do language by doing math, because machines know how to do math. And while a lot of it's changed since that paper came out, the fundamental principle is still the same, which is if I look at the whole corpus of commonly used, say, English words, and I give each one of them think about a three-dimensional space, and I give each one of them a point in space based on how it's related to the other ones, and then I can draw lines between those. And if I do it the right way, what it turns out is similar concepts are parallel lines and near similar points in space, and that's how the machines start to figure out like two words are similar or two concepts are similar or something like that. So it was a mathematical technique to create um, mathematical vectors out of language.
Cool. Um, uh, I feel like I'm very excited because I feel like I've got a true like AI expert on the line here. Would you say that's true? Like next
Uh,
level knowledge.
I don't know. On the technical side, this stuff moves so fast that I think every 6 months maybe you need to find a new expert. And I'm a little disengaged from the technical stuff these days. But I will say from a business model perspective, I've made over 100 investments in AI companies in the last 8.5 years. I've run two AI companies. I can tell you what's working and what's not. So I do have some expertise on that side.
Cool. So when you say what's working and what's not, let's start with what's working and what comes to your head.
Well, there are a lot of areas where AI is having big improvements in things. Obviously, places where there's a lot of data, but the bigger issue is places where it's a natural part of a workflow. Um, Particularly workflows that have what I would call mild variability. So you see a lot of success in areas like a lot of companies that do document analysis, like mortgage documents, right? They all have roughly the same stuff, but they vary by state. Some companies have their own. So they're all kind of similar, but a little bit different. Previously, when computers were really structured, you couldn't deal with that variability. Like even if you knew that you have a social security number on there, but it could be here, it could be here, it could be here, like AI deals really well with that kind of like mild variability. So it's been able to peel off and automate workflows that used to require some combination of humans and machines and make them purely machine driven. So
So, oh, go ahead.
yeah,
So I'm just thinking in home loans, for example. I was a home loan officer for 15, 20 years, whatever, and retired from it finally. Couldn't take it anymore. But we're getting income docs, asset docs, credit docs, boom, 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 boom. And so if what I'm hearing you say is where an underwriter or a processor might need to, take disparate W-2s, now AI can go, oh, it can pull the relevant information without needing the processor to point out where the key bits of information are. Is that kind of what you're
yeah, you don't
saying
need a
there?
human to do everything that they used to do. The
Yeah.
AI could deal with you used to need humans to deal with the variability, and you don't anymore. You still, if it's wide open variability, if it's purely creative, maybe you need humans a little bit more. But for a lot of these workflows, you don't.
Okay, cool. Um,
And then where it breaks down is similar, is kind of related, which is there are workflows where the AI doesn't fit in well, even though it's useful and requires a fundamental workflow change. So sometimes to make these models work, you have to label data, right? Part of what had the breakthrough was that built the modern version of AI was people started going through and instead of just giving the machine a bunch of images and saying, figure out what these are, because how would you know? We finally got large labeled data sets around. These are cat images, these are dog images, these are bicycles, these are
mm,
cars. Somebody
mm.
had to go through and label millions of those, and people started doing it. And then when they saw the impact it could have on AI, they started doing tens of millions. So sometimes there are AI workflows where you're like, oh, we could build a model to do this, but we need some time of labeling the data. internally, well, you don't have a data labeling workflow in your company today. And it seems like overhead and it's extra work. And so that's an example of something that could be really powerful. And if you would adopt it a year from now, you could be really happy that you did. But do you want to suffer, worse gross margins and maybe mildly annoyed employees while you do it when they just want to do it the way they did the old thing?
So this labeling thing's interesting. It seems to me like, I guess, from a purely layman perspective, why not have the AI do the labeling or the workflows do the labeling or
Well, in the early days, it couldn't, right? Because it didn't know what things are. It needed AI still needs humans to teach it, sort of like a kid. But as AI has gotten smarter, there have been more techniques that can do various forms of self-labeling, or in some ways, create synthetic data. So like made up data where it can label the data because it knows what it created.
mm. All right. What's not working? You said there's what's working and then there's what's not working.
Yeah, and what's not working is when people don't want to change their workflows to get the benefits of AI. So because it's like we're already doing it that way, or sometimes it's like everybody thought robots were going to sort of start and eat away at the bottom of the labor chain, but they actually don't, because why? A robot to to do like industrial floor sweeping, not a Roomba, but something to clean the floors in a big building might cost 40, 50, $60,000. Like, okay, well, I mean, if you can hire somebody for minimum wage to do that, why are you going to invest in the robot? What do you get from that? So it's actually not going way down market as much as you thought. It's actually kind of eating labor markets from the middle out. It's
Mm,
it's people that move things around and reorient things. It's
mm,
low level line managers and stuff like that. It's not your highly creative work, and it's not your like low level physical work.
Do you see it? What do you see? I know everything's happening so fast. What do you see the timeline of that, I guess, upward and downward expansion or that band widening? Is that a good way to say that?
Yeah, well, I'm an optimist, and I think what's going to happen is I think you've got a good 10 or 12 years before AI starts to displace the majority of the workforce. And you've probably got 30 plus years before it's can do almost everything's better than humans. And I don't worry about that for two reasons. Number one, I think the productivity in the economy that's going to come from adopting AI broadly over the next 10 years is going to lead to so much efficiency and so much generated wealth that we're going to be able to have very good lives, basically not working very much. And the second thing is, for
Mm,
people that still want to work or people that still want status, I think there'll be human jobs to do. So think about it this way. 200 years ago, we all rode horses. And then cars came along and they were better than horses and everything else. Now, if you ride a horse, you're pretty well off, right? It's a rich person's hobby. Um, Years ago, we all made our own clothes, and then mass-produced clothes came along. And now, if you can afford a nice tailored suit custom for you by a human, you're probably pretty well off. And so humans are always looking for status, right? And I think it will be status to have humans do things for you instead of AI sometimes, because you're basically like, yes, I'm paying more than what I would pay to have the AI do it because I can. And that's what humans like to do to signal various things that are important to them versus other humans. So,
I love that. It's like custom and handcrafted. Here's your
yeah,
custom handcrafted in the marketing space, a copy, for example,
exactly.
or a real live interview, right? Versus the AI
Yeah, you
interview.
get the real Rob instead of my AI head here that's been programmed to say certain things, right? Like that'll mean a lot.
Yeah, I love that. I love the that optimistic viewpoint of it. I also had this funny thought at one point. I was like, we're creating these virtual worlds and we're creating AI and bots are selling to humans. And I like pretty soon AI is going to be selling to AI. It'll literally be an AI purchasing. What? Yeah.
Yeah, so I have thought a lot about this because, so think about it this way. As we move to an agent world, and you're going to have an agent that does certain tasks for you, and at first that agent's going to come to you and say, "Hey, I could do this task better if I knew, if I knew this accounting, if I knew, British accounting standards, UK accounting standards." can I buy and upload this thing into my brain so I can do British accounting standards because you have some British customers now, and you're going to say, yes, you can do that. As that becomes normal, then it's going to do it on its own, right? So then the AI is going to think, well, how can I get smarter and better? And what can I invest in? So I think you will have AIs selling to AIs and they'll be learning. So it becomes really interesting of like, how does that drive the economy? Like at some point, does like the Federal Reserve control the growth of agents to control, because you don't want runaway inflation. Although if these are mostly digital products, you probably won't get it. But like, what will that mean? Like, I don't know, but I think about that a lot. And I try to talk to a friend of mine who had some Federal Reserve experience, and he's basically like, nobody's thinking about that yet. Like, you're not going to get any attention. So, but I think it's cool.
Yeah, I love that. I love that thought. And thank you for riffing on that for a minute. I also have this thought along the lines of I think about the expert economy and services. And when I say the expert economy, that could be coaches, course creators, consultants, whatever, but more of like uh, uh, non, oh, yeah, the Apple. Yay.
Yeah, when you do
The-
stuff, you can make it rain. Yeah, it's cool.
yeah, you can tell I'm getting excited. Um, like, I think about, the damage that we're doing to the world on any given day due to our use of resources, right? And we're
Yeah.
we're obviously trying to sort that out. And some countries are further ahead, others are not so far, whatever. We can save all that. But I start to think about like, this online economy, this digital wealth creation or digital goods and services is almost a savior to how am I trying to say it to we don't need to mine resources anymore because now people are like, oh yeah, I can get my course here, or software based solutions or things like that. Am I making sense there? Or
Yeah, although you'll still, these things consume a lot of processing power, and we still have to build processors, and those take, silicon and other, copper and all kinds of other stuff. And as they try to expand Moore's law, they're going to other different types of difficult to mine minerals, and so we'll see where all that goes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you ever read Novel Harari?
Yeah, I read the book. What was his first book? That's the only one I read.
Sapiens?
Sapiens, yeah.
Yeah, so the next one is pretty interesting. It's not quite as juicy as Sapiens. I thought Sapiens was so compelling, right?
Yeah. It was one of
Yeah,
those, like most books like that, science books or business, most nonfiction is like 350 pages, and you're like, this could have been 80 pages. But an 80-page book, like you could have got all the same concepts in, but an 80-page book feels like, why am I paying for it or whatever? So people expand and tell stupid stories they don't need. Sapiens was a book where like every 2 or 3 pages, you're like, oh wow, good point. Oh, interesting point. Like it was very densely packed with insights.
absolutely. I think the interesting thing about it too was where maybe a book has one major insight, and you're like, wow, glad I read that, right? Or if you're lucky, there's two. But I felt like Sapiens there was like three or four or five, right? Where it was
Yeah.
like mind blowing.
Yeah.
Um, anything come to your mind that memory from that book just to set
Yeah,
up? Yeah,
here's
go
how I
ahead.
sum up that book to people. The general thesis of the book was humans were hunter-gatherers. They were really happy. They were well-fed. They had a lot of free time and a lot of sex and not a lot of disease. And ultimately made a bunch of trade-offs that seemed logical in the moment that all ended up being bad ideas for us. And we did it again with the web and social networks. We're probably doing it again with AI. So we never learned.
We never learned.
But you can't,
Amazing. Well, thank you for that frame. Go ahead.
yeah, you can't go back unless everybody goes back at once, right? Like
Yeah.
otherwise, I mean, we'll
Well,
lose it
cool.
all.
Well, so his second book is called Homo Deus, and I'm just about done with it. And it's interesting because it was written in 2018, and he's talking about a lot of AI concepts and things like that. And a lot of what he was talking about is happening real time right now. You probably saw it happening real time back then yourself already because you were embedded in it, investing in these types of companies and things like that. But it was interesting. He basically says, "Hey, the AI is decoupling consciousness from intelligence, right? What was great about humans is we were intelligent and conscious, right? But pretty soon
Yeah,
AI is going to be, and perhaps is as we record this, more intelligent than a human.
right.
Does that, can you,
Yes, I mean I think so, but at the same time, there's two pieces to that, right? That matter when you think through what it could be. One is we don't really know what super intelligence means. Like you can tell the difference between somebody with 100 and 150 IQ and maybe 180 IQ, but like a 400 IQ, like there's never been a like what does that mean? How smart are they? Does it really matter? Um, what will they think about it? What will they want to do? And then the second thing is these things have objective functions. So we tell them what to optimize and train for. They don't have, humans have this very broad objective function, which is like, well, ultimately we want our genes to reproduce. Well, how do you do that? Well, you have to stay alive. So you have to avoid, animals and death and all these disease and everything else. You have to eat, you have to drink water, you have to sleep. Like, so we break it down in these sub goals. AI doesn't work that way yet. So it's unclear what it's going to look like if we're going to figure out how to endow AIs with certain broader goals where they figure out the sub goals. I don't know that a lot of people will say intelligence and self-awareness or consciousness are different, and then you could have one without the other. Well, maybe
yeah,
you could have intelligence without consciousness, but not vice versa. And so um, we'll see. We'll
yeah,
see what happens there.
yeah. Thank you for that. He goes on and says, and this is going to speak to something that you were talking about. He goes on to say that, hey, the basic framework of society right now, and I'm going to make some gross generalizations,
Yeah,
are we needed human power for military might, right? Countries were trying to have as many people as possible so they could have a large military force, right? And then
yeah,
the other thing is workforce, right? You're trying to have a lot of people so that you have a workforce so you can, produce, right? And now we're kind of decoupling from that, where all this AI, all this tech, robotics, all these things, the automation of the military, things like that, where it's like we don't need humans anymore for military. We are rapidly not needing humans anymore for production. So where's that going to leave us? And I think you spoke to that a little bit, but maybe you could riff on that a little bit more in agreement or disagreement or
yeah. I
whatever
mean,
you think about that.
it's gonna. Well, there are certain things like military is a good example of. Do you want the humans to be too far removed from some of that? I mean, there's some people that question the ethics of, killing somebody with a drone on the other side of the world from a video monitor here. And so I think there's a bunch of ethical questions in there that people need to think about. And I think, but it's going to change a lot. Like everything's going to become more automated, and we have to decide. Like the hard part's going to be, we're still a long way, I think, from trusting AI enough to turn everything over to it. But at some point, some people will be
Sure.
making the argument that AI should be in charge of something, and it'll be something important. I think we'll ask as a society, like, but humans have some evolved natural affinity for other humans that an AI might not have, and that factors into certain decisions.
Yeah.
So there's a woman at MIT. Her name is Kate Darling, and she does research on robots. And one of the things that she did one time years ago was, I think this was Kate did this work, but they definitely did it at MIT. Was they take these robots and they have people like smash the robot, right? Like break up and they make the robot more and more human like. And then they add voices to it. And when they make it more human like and it starts to like whimper when you hit it, like most people can't do it. They can't destroy the robot. And so there's and so but it might not, but the AIs might not feel the same about us. I don't know. So a lot of interesting stuff coming in those domains.
Absolutely. And I think, Novell's point was that as we need less and less of a human numbers, that the people who are, I don't know if I want to say in power or happen to be at the top of the food chain or at the top of the businesses making decisions, we're in an interesting place of what do we do with all these leftover humans, right? Where that we don't need them anymore the way society is designed. So lots of fun
Well,
things to go ahead.
Yeah, well, it could be interesting. I mean, as in general, as societies get wealthier, they have fewer children, they invest more per child. When you used to have 8 children because you didn't know they were all going to make it or whatever. And now, I think we're even in the United States at like 2.1 or 1.8 or something, like we're barely around two. We
Yeah.
might not even we might not even be at the replacement rate anymore. So China's going through this now where their population is going to start shrinking.
Mm.
Because they forced it, right? They had the one child policy for so long because their population was too big. Now they're trying to revamp it, and but in general, societies get wealthier and they have fewer kids, and more people decide like, well, I can live a great life with a lot of things. Like, why do I want kids to interfere with that or whatever? And there's more people that
Yeah.
don't get married, or they get married later in life and then don't have kids. All these different things. It's like, the population may shrink. I mean, we may need everybody to work plus the robots. I don't know.
Oh my God, I love that. Japan's going through that too in a big way right now, right?
Yeah.
That's it. So hey, look, I've kind of went down this path or this rabbit hole, and I've got you on the show, and you have a bunch of cool stuff going on. People can find you on LinkedIn. It's Rob May, pretty simple. You must have been the first Rob May to, I don't
Oh,
know
let me tell
how
you a
you
story.
secured.
If you use Reddit, which came out in 2015, my username is Rob, ROB. I was super early. Yeah.
That is incredible. So yeah, people can find you LinkedIn, Rob May, simple as that. Instagram Brand Guard. You've got a company Brand Guard. I want to make sure to give you space to talk about that. And it's where you scale your marketing safely with Brand Guard. That's your headline. So I want to make sure to give you space. We can dive into that. But anybody listening, watching, be sure to go to brandguard.ai, check out what Rob's up to. You can go to X and check out Brand Guard. So you're all over the place. Do you have a favorite place to send people right now, or where are you liking
Um,
to send
for
people?
Brand Guard, mostly to the website. Brandguard.ai is probably the best thing. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I was listening to some of your old episodes, digging deep on a bunch of the stuff you do. Not super deep, but I mean you're a wealth of information. Like you were general partner at, I can't remember the firm, but some
At
firm in
PJC
Boston.
in Boston. Yeah. I was a VC for a while.
Yeah, like leading robotics investments, things like that. You've been an angel investor in, like you said, what,
100
100 companies or
plus
something
companies.
like
Yeah.
that. So, like, what's your favorite thing to talk about, or like, what drives you? Like, where do you like, man, I wake up and I can't wait to talk about blank.
Yeah, I like solving problems, and I like learning. And so I'm not a good like I'm a mediocre but competent like operator. So like if you need me to run a customer support division or a sales division, like I can step in and do that for a while. Like I know how to do those things. But after 3 months, I'll be super bored unless you need me to make a bunch of changes. And so like that's not a good fit for me, right? There are people who are better at that and like that much more than me. I am really good at when people are like, oh, how do we like this problem's interesting. Like I'm really drawn to those areas, whether they're business problems or scientific or technical problems. So that's what I like about early stage startups is helping people think through like, particularly when you're starting a company, you're not just building for now, but you have to think about how do I get a path so that I'm still alive in 3 years when things are probably pretty different? Now, as markets mature, they stabilize, but you can bob and weave and have to build a lot of different product features. And sometimes in the early days, people ask for things that won't really be long-term product features that you need, and like just all this stuff. And I love thinking through those things, and I love learning about new technology, and I love trying to make bets about where it's going to go and how it's going to develop.
Do you need to work?
Um, I did. I'll put it this way: I didn't after I sold my first company, but I very aggressively invested after that, and so I would say, and probably not as liquid as I would like to be now. My financial advisor is not happy with that decision, but it's going to pay off great. And I did that because I actually tried to take off some time, and I didn't do a very good job. Oh, it was awesome at first, right? Like first like month or two, like I slept like 9 hours a night. I worked out 2 hours every day. It was amazing. But then like I just, I went from saying like I remember like saying, this is great. Like nobody needs me. I'm not getting all these like texts and emails. Like nobody needs me. And then after like 6 months, I was like 3 months, I was like, nobody needs me. Like I want to feel needed, right? I want to I want to go out and do something. I want somebody to need my opinion on things. And so I really struggled to not work. And
Mm.
so when I decided to sort of go back into it, I was like, oh, I could be a little more aggressive with my money because I'm not gonna I don't intend to need it for a while. So that's why I've done so much startup investing.
I love that. So kind of two things. One, you're like, hey, I can be aggressive with my money, which is super cool. You've invested in all these companies and perhaps 1 out of 10 pay off, or maybe you're a genius, so 2 out of 10 pay off. Um, and then the other thing is you really sounds to me like, and maybe you can validate this, um, re-entering the workforce or re-entering uh yeah, the workforce, call it what we will. You really were coming at it from a place of not necessarily necessity, but how can I serve?
Yeah, and just like I mean a little bit just personally of like what am I interested in? What do I enjoy, doing day to day? And yeah, I mean I do like I think like helpfulness is a personal value. I mean, I can't at this point in my career, everybody that reaches out and asks for, 10 minutes of my time to talk about something like I can't do them all, but I still try to take some of those. Particularly ones that are causes that are close to my heart, technologies I'm particularly interested in, people that seem super compelling for some unusual reason, stuff like that.
Yeah, cool. Um, I think we're saying the same thing. I think you get to be very tactical in how you apply your time, your resources, and it's more about of a space of like it's not necessity is the mother of invention. It's you get to be again tactical, strategic. This is where my passion. That's what people are always talking about. Live your
Yeah.
passion, do your dream, whatever. It sounds like you're getting to play in that space.
Yeah, definitely. And you get the chance to also like learn new things and move around. I mean, I'm working on other things now that, maybe I wouldn't have had the capacity to work on previously because I have more time and money and that's fun.
Yeah, cool. So, Brand Guard, what's going on there? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd
You're gonna
say
say.
this is a company we kind of stumbled upon. This is not what we started the company to do. What happened was we started using we built a company a year ago to automatically generate lots of Google and Facebook ads for you. So this wasn't exactly how we did it, but I'll give you this example so people understand it. But imagine if you market these phone cases and you're like, and you tell ChatGPT, here's how I market this phone case, and here's what I say. But here's 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 different super hyper targeted customer profiles. Can you rewrite my marketing message for each one? So rewrite my marketing message for women 18 to 24 in New Orleans, Louisiana, women 18 to 24 in Phoenix, Arizona, men 50 to 55 in Portland, Maine, all that. And it turns out when you do that, you actually get big uplifts. We saw, 30% uplift in click-through rates when the words you use and the way you phrase things match your vernacular for your age and geographic group. But when I would go to CMOs and show them this, and they would say, well, that's great. Say you're going to create 5,000 Facebook image ads for me. That's cool. But like, I have to check all those. Brand managers are very important about the very specific words you use. Say this, but not that. And I would say those sound like the same word. No, no, no. We only say purified. We never say filtered, right? Like whatever they have. And in the same way with images, right? Well, no, we would never have somebody that had more than one ring on their left hand. In our advertisement because that would imply blah, and we are like this. Their brand managers are crazy about this stuff. They love it. So when we realized that, we stepped back and we said, well, could we teach machines to like ingest your brand guidelines and understand them? And it turns out you can. So that actually just became the company. So what we do now is for companies that produce a lot of marketing content and constantly have this like onerous review process to make sure everything's right and have large documents that define the brand guidelines. So mostly call it, Fortune 5,000 companies, but we have some down market companies as well that are just uniquely like really care about their brand, really nitpicky and everything else. They want everything to be perfect. Um, we ingest their content on the brand guidelines. We use it to build machine learning models, and we have an automated checker. So a lot of big companies use it. A lot of people where you have like licensing or franchisor kinds of relationships, channel partnerships, where you're like, well, I have these brand rights and this IP, and I'm gonna give it to you, and you can modify it, but don't modify it too far. It has to fit these rules. Well, what can happen now is you can set up a brand guard page and you could say, anything that you're going to market or co-market, you need to upload here, and brand guard needs to say yes. If brand guard doesn't say yes, don't send it to us. Just, fix it. And until it passes brand guard, don't send it to a human and waste our time. Because shockingly, we were on the phone today with a Fortune 50 company who told us that the initial pass of roughly half their marketing content is off brand. And so you're just like, wow, like I had no idea it would be that high. So, there's a lot to check. Sometimes it's simple stuff like font colors, logo placement, spacing. Other times it's more like look and feel. Like we would never put a person who looks like that, in our ad because we're this way and not this way.
So if I heard you correctly, there's a Fortune 50 company out there. What and 50% of their ads are not passing that
The
the
initial
brand
screening, everything that
the
goes
initial
out is
screening.
finally good, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
most, but the initial internal pass of stuff people create, 50% of it is rejected because it's not on brand and doesn't meet the brand guidelines.
So they're going to a marketing agency saying, create this content for us, whatever, and then it comes in and 50% of it doesn't pass. Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Cool. Or not cool. Or you're like, yay, we've got a tool for
Good for
that.
me because I have a tool to solve this problem. But yeah.
Yes.
And when you think about, so this problem exists today for humans. When you think about, well, I want to create 100,000 landing pages now using generative AI for
Yeah,
millions of different customers, like a human can't keep up. So you need a tool that says, yeah, this is all on brand. And we didn't have something weird slip out of the generative AI and some weird picture, or weird word, or something into your marketing. So we check all that.
that's incredible. So you're doing that at a big scale.
Yes.
Oh
Well,
my
we're
gosh.
an early company. We have a lot of customers, but a lot of them are in pilots and betas, and so
Yeah,
so I wouldn't say like we're doing millions of assets a month yet, but we'll be there by the end of this year for sure, based on the
that's
track.
incredible. And so how gosh, I don't even know. I don't even know what questions to ask at this point in regard to that. How so go ahead. Were you gonna say say something right there or
No, no, no. It's a really interesting business, and I didn't think we'd end up here, but it's because I don't come from the brand marketing world, right? So we've had
yeah,
to hire some people who understand that. I mean, I'm an enterprise software person, but it's turned into a really good business.
that's amazing. And then do you have Salesforce? Do you have a sales team out there soliciting, or is this all organic? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we do. We have both. I would say we're about probably 40% organic, and then about 60% outbound. And I would include an outbound, like going to conferences and getting in front of people. So that's probably one of our biggest channels is
Yeah.
setting up a booth and have people come by and say, like, what is brand guard? Should I be guarding my brand? And we explain to them and they go, oh, wow, I should. I need this.
Hey, well, that's it. So it's an easy sell right now, I guess. Are you the only people in the space right now, or
We're the only people, yeah, with our approach. There's no like direct competitors yet. I mean, I'm sure probably as we get, well known, I think we'll see another competitor or two. It'll probably come from there's people that do brand safety. So brand safety is like I created an ad and I'm putting it on YouTube. Can you make sure it doesn't show up next to like an ISIS video on YouTube because I'm a children's toy, right? Like I don't want that. Um, and like those people, I think it would be logical for them to sort of like come into our space at some points. I suspect we'll see some competition there, maybe some from some like compliance related companies who do other forms of compliance and see it as a good fit to do brand compliance. But right now, there's not a direct competitor that we've seen.
hmm. And then any favorite like you're doing beta testing. You're having what V1 customers. Any favorite success stories out there yet, or anything out there where you're like, wow, this is awesome.
We have from our tool or like tools I use. What do you?
Well, from your tool of like the
Yeah,
tool that, yeah.
we have a customer that is so excited about this, was so excited to roll it out because they are a big company that has quantified how much it costs them. Their CMO is like, every ad that goes out that has the wrong font performs 10% worse than our other ads. And so when you're doing billions of dollars a year and, like they can quantify this as a tens of millions of dollars a year problem for them. And so that's
Mm.
been pretty cool.
That's
Um,
very exciting.
but yeah, that's probably the most. We haven't published any public case studies yet, but I suspect you'll see some by the middle of the year.
Yeah, fantastic. So, well, that's amazing to be able to tie ROI to that. That's like the dream, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, anytime you're selling something and you can show tangible impact, yeah, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, amazing. Well, this is good. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you letting me bob and weave a little bit with what we were talking about. I do want to be cognizant of your time. Um, I'll give you 1 second, maybe. Is there anything like I inevitably when I get interviewed, we hang up or the interview ends, and I'm like, oh, I wished I'd have said this or I'd have addressed this or talked about that. Is there anything that comes to your mind that you're like, oh, I wished I'd have talked about or I wished I'd have said X?
Um, no, I like to talk about all these topics, and I think I think when it comes to AI, I think the thing to keep in mind is that companies that are out there that are thinking about it, you should be running experiments and trying to adopt it because it does require some workflow change. It is different. You do have to wrap your head around it. So start playing with these tools and roll them out slowly because you're really going to be left behind if you're not in that first or second wave of adoption.
Mm. Amazing. Great tip. Great advice. I'm going to hit stop and we'll take a couple minutes and say goodbye offline. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.